seated. Be seated.
All right, I want to welcome you all to this witch inquiry today. My name is Jill Pozeski, and when I'm not helping out here at Henricus Historical Park, I'm the Curator of Education at Agecroft Hall Museum and Gardens. If any of you haven't been there before, it is a Tudor Stuart manor house that was moved from England to Richmond. We're in the Windsor Farms neighborhood. So we have a little bit of overlap with time period, so we kind of help each other out every chance that we get. Another interesting connection for what we're going to talk about today is when Agecroft was in England, it was in Lancashire County. And Lancashire County was the site of one of the biggest witch trials in England. Has anyone ever heard of the Pendle Hill witch trials? Excellent, yeah. So those are in 1612, so before the ones we're going to talk about today. 10 witches were found guilty and hung during those trials, and 1 person died in jail. So it was one of the larger witch trials in England. That being said, there aren't an overwhelming number of witch trials. So this is something that would happen, but not something that would happen constantly. But the people who were here in Virginia would have known about the Pendle Hill witch trials and would have probably gotten the information because it was covered pretty extensively. So what we're going to be doing today is an inquest. What we're trying to figure out is if there is enough evidence to have a trial. Have any of you guys been on grand jury before? A couple of you. It's kind of like that. You're basically hearing and making the decision about whether there should be a trial. So what we want y'all to do today is obviously enjoy the program and enjoy the presentation, but also listen and see if you think there's enough evidence, and at the end, we'll see if we're going to have this trial go forward. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over and we're going to start our program.
I call this court of inquiry into accusations of witchcraft against goodwife Joan Wright to order. God save the King!
God save the King!
This committee of officers of the court shall determine whether today's accusations and depositions merit and necessitate a trial for witchcraft. The Honorable Gentleman Captain West and Dr. Potts shall also cross-examine the deponents in accordance with the laws of England and under the authority of King Charles. All those who have business with this court will remain seated and comport themselves in silence. Captain West, you may summon the first opponent.
Aye, sir. This court calls Lieutenant Giles Anderson. State your name, sir.
Lieutenant Giles Anderson of Virginia.
Aye. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is correct and true under penalty of perjury?
Aye, sir, I do.
Very well.
Lieutenant, you may begin.
I have been a soldier. I have seen hard service both in Ireland and the Low Countries. And since my coming away to Virginia, I have held but the small, modest fear of the naturals.
Your service to England and the colony are well regarded and already known, Lieutenant. You do well to keep your remarks focused upon the alleged behavior of Mistress Wright. Do you understand me?
Aye, sir, of course. Goodwife Wright was considered for bringing my child into this world. But I found great suspicion of her when I witnessed her working of the left hand. That made us have hard consideration for the safety of our child. My wife and I opted for Mistress Graves.
Did you?
You say this with certainty. Did you by your own eye observe her dominant use of the left hand?
Aye, sir, I did. I did see her work with her left hand, and she stitched with it too.
Continue, Lieutenant.
Because we opted for Mistress Graves, it was obvious that Goodwife Wright had hard feelings. I prayed it would not come to pass. But after the birth of our child, sickness prevailed. And with each recovery came yet another sickness. Each one more extraordinarily painful than the one before, and then another, until finally our child departed. Even the physicians could not determine its cause.
Is there aught else you would declare regarding this matter, Lieutenant?
Nay, I do pray this court does find justice for Goodwife Wright.
Very well. You have this court's most sincere condolences upon the death of your child, Lieutenant. But never fear, we are here to seek justice. You are dismissed.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time. Yes, I believe so. Yes, there you go. Well, Captain West, call forth the next opponent, I suppose.
Yes, sir. This court calls Daniel Watkins to come forth and give testimony. State your name.
Daniel Watkins, sir.
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is true and to your knowledge upon penalty of perjury?
I do, sir.
Very well.
It is this court's understanding that you have first-hand knowledge of witchcraft committed by Joan Wright. Is this correct?
Aye, sir, that be true, or at least I believe it to be so.
Please begin your account.
Well, sir, I worked close by with Sergeant Booth, and one day while working together, he was approached by Goodwife Wright. She asked him for extra meat for sustenance. As he did not know the rights well, he said nay. And afterwards, Goodwife Wright seemed very angry about his denial. Shortly afterwards, when he went out hunting, he was unable to fire his musket by his own hand. And Sergeant Booth is a soldier. He knows his piece very well. But after the encounter with the Wrights, he was unable to fire the musket. It's almost like he was under the magic of...
Stop. There will be no declarations of spells here. Let the court determine what is or is not the power of witchcraft. State only what you've seen with your own eyes, man.
Aye, sir. Well, I went out hunting many times with Sergeant Booth, and every time he was unable to fire his musket by his own hand. By my hand, though, it would fire.
Did you perchance bring the weapon with you so that we may inspect it?
Aye, sir.
Bring it forth.
Here it be.
Turn about.
You're serviceable.
Let's see. I don't see Sergeant Booth anywhere about. Is he not under warrant to appear?
I delivered the document to him myself.
Sir.
He knows that he is summoned to this court.
I do believe that he is afraid to be in the presence of Goodwife Wright.
I see. He will come to this court hither tomorrow, or he will be held in contempt. Captain, have your men find the sergeant. Very well, Watkins, you are dismissed. Thank you for your deposition.
Aye, sir.
Next, Captain.
Aye, sir. The court calls forth Robert Wright. Come and be sworn. State your name, man.
Robert Wright, sir.
Aye. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is true upon penalty of perjury?
I do, sir.
Very well.
Your wife has had considerable accusations leveled against her godliness and civility today. However, this court desires that you offer only objective accounts of her behavior. The outcome of this inquiry will impact not just your wife, sir, but you as well. Therefore, speak with caution.
I understand, sir. My wife and I have been wed some 16 years, and I've seen nothing transpire in that time, such as the accounts brought here today. You all know me to be an ancient planter in this colony as well, and a respected sawyer. I would never dare to involve myself in an unholy union, or engage in acts against His Majesty's good name. The simple truth be that there are many folk in this court today who hold petty jealousies against their neighbors and who conspire to undermine our prosperity. That is the one truth I see here.
Master Wright, we will have facts only. Concern yourself with your words with the things you've observed from your wife, and leave off with your opinions upon the character of your neighbors.
Very well, sir. I have seen no acts of witchcraft done at my wife's hand. She has a strong temperament at times, it is true, but these be more a product of the clime and not of the devil.
Very well, Master Wright. Thank you for your deposition. You are dismissed. It's best now that we speak with and hear from the accused, good wife Joan Wright.
Aye, sir. This court calls forth Joan Wright. State your name.
Joan Wright, sir.
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is true upon penalty of perjury?
I do, sir.
You are here to answer accusations of witchcraft, a capital offense, made by neighbors known to you at different plantations, 3 different plantations, and each deposed here in this court today. If evidence be sufficient, you may be put on trial for this crime. What have you to say for yourself?
I, sir, just so. My very pious neighbors, they that testifieth here today, be but either angry or jealous of me, my husband, or our modest successes. Their accusations fly high, as do their imaginations. Lieutenant Anderson's child sadly died, yea, but it were because 'twas sickly in the heat of Virginia's summer clime. And then they would go with a midwife of no skill at all. Oh, and the sergeant's piece does not shoot because mayhap his hand is tight with the rheumatism, surely, and cannot squeeze the sear in time, I know not. Nor can I attest to his skill or lack when hunting game, but his misfires are no deeds of mine. And what of my left hand? I can work with both, so what, I am a witch because I am more apt to work thus? 'Tis the utmost gibberish and nonsense withal. Midwives are oft so accused by those who, by their grief or mourning, betake a grim view of our work, and seek to put upon us the blame for the deaths of their precious babes. But is that just? I think not. 'Tis an accusation based upon fear and silly superstition, and is a foolishness.
We of the court will determine which is foolish and which is not, good wife Wright. Do the officers of the court wish to ask the
Aye,
deposed
sir.
questions?
I have a question. Goody Wright, looking to an accounting of your reputation, were you not whipped under a previous administration for neglecting your duties?
Aye, sir, that be true, though not much of accord in truth. I was whipped by Sir Thomas Dale's officers because we had precious little thread to make up shirts for the relief of the near naked among us. We unraveled threads from the bottoms of some shirts in order to complete more. That is all. I suppose it may be that one of the officers could not spare even an inch of the length of his shirt tail that day.
Yet you did violate the law.
I was found guilty, yea. And Anne Layden, who was with child and who looked to me for her care, was also whipped in this folly. She lost her child from the beating. Call you that just? That was an evil day for Anne and her poor wretched family.
Was her child's death proven to be a result of the whipping?
Mistress Wright, keep your answers confined to your own behavior. This court cannot make inquiry into all the alleged wrongs and injustices, and you certainly are in no position to speak upon the law.
I will, sir. Aye.
Have you aught else to say in your defense against these accusations from the deponents?
I have nothing more to add to this inquiry but this. I am a God-fearing woman, law-abiding and helpful to those who are my friends. I cannot judge my temperament or character, but I trust my husband to know my good graces, and God to know what lieth in my heart. That is all.
Very well, mistress, you are dismissed for the present. This court will recess until tomorrow morning when we shall hear final depositions concerning witchcraft against Joan Wright. Court is hereby dismissed.
God save the king!
God save the king!
All right, so you guys have heard the evidence. How many of you think there needs to be a trial to look into this further? How many of you think that they didn't prove a good case and they should just let her go? Okay, interesting. Does anybody want to, and you don't have to, but does anybody want to volunteer why they either think they should have the trial or not?
Left-handed.
There you go. Sometimes it's just one of those things, right? How about people who said they think that they should just let her go? Why do you think that?
Well, clearly from the evidence we were given, she was inevitably perhaps younger, perhaps more attractive, perhaps more happily married to what we call today good-looking dude. And there would be a lot of envy back then against a woman who might be more intelligent, doing good works instead of proclaiming good works. And so I would say she probably was guilty of being a successful, attractive female who they were jealous of.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else want to share? Yeah.
You're missing two big things. One, we never saw the sergeant. He never appeared in the court. We know nothing of his age, and if, as the good wife did describe, if he did have arthritis or his hands were crippled to not be able to fire the weapon.
Excellent.
Also, the court never actually test fired the weapon. Now I know in 1622 you could never judge or question the court's hearsay. But okay, the gun looked serviceable. Where was the proof that it actually fired?
Excellent. Good. Yeah.
Yes.
Hadn't even thought of that yet.
The evidence was coincidental. Couldn't really.
Right. So it seemed like just kind of circumstances lined up, and yeah. Yes.
We know it's Irish because he said that he took it and fired it.
Aha!
Do I not look trustworthy?
And also,
Does that not prove the witchcraft?
and also bear in mind it's a matchlock musket. It has very little mechanism. If the mechanism works, as he showed that it did, it will fire.
Proving that it's witchcraft.
Indeed!
All right. Anybody else? All right, so I'd like to open it up if you have questions for the people who were in the trial. So if you guys want to come up, and I know they were in first person, but if you have a question that's maybe not for them in first person, I think they could probably answer that as well. So if you guys want to come up for a second, just to see if we have any questions for the individual people and what their thoughts might be on that.
Back up, back up.
Oh, thanks.
We should tell people.
How did it end?
Yeah, I was going to say if you want to go ahead and
Sure, okay.
spoil the surprise here.
So hey everybody, my name's John. I'm the historic site supervisor, and I kind of asked all these brilliant people to be involved in this. Oh, so there's a camera here.
The light. You want the light upon you.
The original transcripts of this inquiry are accessible even online if you really wanted to look at them on the court records of Virginia. And with this ensemble of staff and our folks that know the period really well, we went into those testimonials, we developed a script, and in the end we know the outcome. The outcome was she was not brought to trial. In fact, it was you really don't find a lot of these instances of witchcraft amounting to much in early Virginia. All right.
And may we also point out that Salem is latecomers to this, guys. That's 1690. She's accused in 1626.
You would say the Puritans were a lot harsher than the Cavalier Virginians.
Yes, well, the Puritans are trying to create their version of God's paradise on earth. Their freedom of religion is freedom of their religion. Here in Virginia, it's about survival in the early days. I was recently berated by a fan who said that, the fan's the wrong word, that Virginians were just trying to get rich and were greedy. You can't get rich if you die. It was all about survival. These are the early days. If a little old lady walks by a field of cows in New England and the next day a cow is dead, she's a witch. Now, here in Virginia, not a little old lady, but someone walks by a field of cows and the next day a cow is dead, you skin it and sell the leather. See the difference? It's about survival, whereas New England was more concerned with proving their godliness. And they still are, but you know.
Now, that being said, there are multiple laws passed in England throughout the centuries that deal with just this topic. Based on the chapter in Exodus where thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. However, those laws require something to have happened. It's not just an accusation. So we need to see somebody going to a witch for divination, for telling the future, for love potions, for curses, for evidence of the witch impacting someone resulting in injury or death. These are all things that will get you dead in England. But the English were always pretty iffy with this, to the point where while the law says this is what happens, the people who administer the law also have not found actual evidence of these things being something that happens. They believe them because the Bible says to believe them. We know witchcraft exists because the Bible says so. But we haven't actually seen the effects of it that we can lock down. So England is of two minds at this point. And eventually the witchcraft laws, the statutes, will be stricken from the books. It just takes time for that to happen.
And it's interesting that the witchcraft craze, if you will, is long dead in England by 1690 when Salem blows up. Again, that's attributable directly to the New England version of Puritanism. It's never like that down here. It's already pretty much gone. I mean, James might write a book about demonology, but he begins to doubt the existence of witches in quite the numbers that are accused. So.
Okay, to follow with what you're talking about, what in your educated opinions would have caused this kind of hysteria, little tiny piece of hysteria against a person? What was the prevailing climate of this little village that might have triggered such a thing?
Well, superstition's a big one, plus the lack of medical knowledge. She's a midwife, and most likely a decent midwife. The couple in question chose a different midwife because this one's left-handed, and the one they chose probably didn't have enough skill. But if you're not a midwife, you don't know the difference. So all you know is this left-handed midwife who was passed over probably cursed your child to die.
And Joan...
That's all the evidence you need to make the accusation.
Joan is actually associated with witchery at least 3 different times here in Virginia, plus back home in England. And if you dig out the court records, you'll find the entire transcript, such as survives, that mentions the different cases. And of course we look at these things and go, really? But you know, there's an interesting book, I think it was Demos's Little Commonwealth. It's been way too many years since I've read it. But he posits that, especially up in New England, you have an excess of young marriageable women and a dearth of established men that are prosperous, most of whom are already taken. And if you look at the accusations that get leveled up there, he points out that most of them were single girls pointing at married women. And he says, you know, there could be an economic motive behind some of the early stuff that eventually mob rule, guys, mass hysteria, and everybody starts believing it. Do you know what stopped the Salem trials? When the governor's wife got accused, the governor went, okay, we're done here. We've had enough of this. But seriously, that's what stops it, was when the governor's wife gets hauled in.
What would have they done to him had she been accused?
Well, he would suffer loss of his property. You know, he could be loss of his property, could be re-indentured, could be banished, which we know in at least one occasion somebody is whipped out of, I want to say, Gloucester County under accusations of witchcraft. So there are numerous cases that appear, not huge numbers, maybe a half a dozen over the course of the first 50 years we're here. But we do see them, and only one of them actually results in somebody physically being punished and banished from the county.
But there are never any deaths in Virginia from witchcraft. No one is ever executed for that crime. It's unfortunate that, as you said, some are whipped out, some are going to be fined, some will be indicted and fined, but that's a far cry from being hung, I think, anyway.
Let me just finish up with, we forgot to mention something. The court in their findings did give the two of them new land. And it might give you a hint about whether or not the court, even though they let them go, the land they gave them was only a few miles from the court itself on Jamestown Island. They didn't put them back at one of the other communities that they came from. They kept them real close. Maybe to watch, maybe just to keep them protected, but who knows. But they did get, I believe, 10 acres. Does 10 acres sound right?
Probably close to a 5 to 10, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. But his job is a sawyer. So his job is to cut wood and make planking for people, but he's not necessarily a farmer. And she's a midwife. So having several acres is a gift from the court to resettle. It's not that bad. But having it on Jamestown Island, a few minutes from the seat of government, is a really interesting ending to them.
And it's Jamestown, too.
Great water there. Anyway, well, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for coming, and thank Jill and Ashcroft Hall and all the folks who contributed to the court inquiry. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, guys.